Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rainbows bringing you an exciting game right here on Desert Oasis between jpup and Sakazaki, a TVZ. Now, Desert Oasis is a very exciting map for those of you who have been living in a cave for the duration of the beta. Desert Oasis has a couple of really interesting features. One of them is that it's really close in between the two bases if you just go by air. So as the Overlord flies in this case, these bases are very close. So Sakazaki is actually going to have a very good idea of what jpup is doing in a minute because he is sending the Overlord in the right direction. It's a two-player map, kind of hard to mess up. Some other interesting things that this map has is your natural expansion is kind of hard to defend. It's way over in Texas. There's your ramp right here, and then your natural is about a screen away right there. Your natural also has two very wide routes of access. You've got this big thing here, and this is a slightly smaller choke here, and there are two paths between the bases, two very winding, kind of long, distant paths between the bases. It does look like jpup is getting up a supply depot because he does not want to be supply blocked. That is very ingenious of him. Sakazaki, in the meantime, appears to be going for some pool later than 13. Fast expanding is not that unsafe at this map, despite your natural being so unprotected, just because the ground routes between the bases are so far. If we remember, jpup sent out this scouting SCV before he built his first supply depot, and it is just now arriving in Sakazaki's base. So he can see just now that Sakazaki is, in fact, putting down his pool right now. It has barely started. And Sakazaki does appear to be adding gas, just so that he can get that fast layer, just in case jpup goes air of any sort, or maybe he wants to go roaches, maybe he wants to go banelings. Point is, he's getting gas, because gas is kind of useful if he wants to build anything other than zerglings and drones and overlords and buildings that don't require gas. jpup, in the meantime, is getting his own gas and finishing off his wall-in with this bunker here. Good so far. This wall-in is going to be link tight after he adds on another supply depot right here, which he is doing. It's kind of an interesting shape because it allows a bunch of stuff right up in front of the barracks there, but it is going to be very effective for his purposes. Sakazaki has actually not scouted with his Overlord. It looks like he's just using it to make sure that no drops are incoming. And in the meantime, jpup is just twiddling his SCV around to make sure that Sakazaki doesn't expand without him getting a handle on it. Very wise move by him. He doesn't want Zerg to be up a free expansion for nothing. And it does appear that he's finally starting his orbital command right on 17, and that orbital command is going to pay for itself very shortly. I'm going to continue to drool resources all over his tyranny goodness. And it looks like Sakazaki is actually going for early ling speed. He's not going to go for roaches or a lair or anything of that sort, and he is adding on a second gas. Not really sure how necessary that is, considering he's only spending gas on ling speed right now. But that will enable him to drop quite a large stockpile at some later point in the game. And it looks like jpup is adding on his second gas as well, and he's going to get a factory. So this will enable him to transition into all sorts of fun tier 2 tech, tanks, Thors, air, pretty much everything you can think of. Factory is really the gateway into the higher tier units of Terran. Sakazaki is not mining out of his second gas yet, even though he does have it up. Hopefully we'll see that shortly. And it looks like Sakazaki is actually making a bunch of lings. jpup, in the meantime, is adding a tech lab onto his barracks so that he can produce marauders, really the bread and butter of any good Terran army. And Sakazaki is going to go ahead and grab his natural. He's got a hatchery coming up there. If we tab on over to the income tab, we can see that both players are dead on even on harvesters right now. It looks like jpup is mining out of both gases when Sakazaki has not managed to get any drones, and right as I say that, he does get 3 drones going on this extractor, so they are going to be dead even on income except for mules, which are definitely going to push the macro game in jpup's favor. jpup appears to be going for a starport right now as we speak, which is very smart of him, just because the bases are so close together. Any sort of drop play is absolutely devastating, and banshees and Vikings are even more powerful, and ravens, of course, are always just a good addition to any Terran army late game. Sakazaki is getting a lair, so he probably will have some sort of anti-air of his own just in time. And it looks like Sakazaki is adding on a baneling nest. He's getting ready to counter any sort of ground-based force that jpup may be putting together, or even just bust in the front door. He's going to be very well equipped to do that momentarily. jpup, in the meantime, though, is getting his first banshee as we speak. Cloaking is not being researched, so it looks like he's just going to go for kind of a straight harass with this banshee. None of this cloakery, schmokery. And he's also adding on an engineering bay, probably for turrets to deal with any potential mutas, or possibly for upgrades. But upgrades seem a little bit unlikely as he's only producing off of one barracks right now. So we'll see what he does there in a second. Sakazaki, in the meantime, has not yet had a chance to establish his natural. It does look like he is building drones right there at his natural, rallied to his natural. So he's going to have a very small number of drones there in a minute. His mine looks... I'm just going to eyeball this and say that this is a little bit oversaturated, and he would probably be well off to Maynard a couple of probes over. But his game, he can play it the way he wants to. And he is going to not notice the difference between Maynarding and just building drones in a couple of seconds, because he's got two hatcheries, full-time, pumping drones right into that mineral field. And as you can see, he's got the harvester count way, way up. And it looks like his Spire is almost done. The Spire is not going to be in time to deal with this first Banshee, though, as this first Banshee is just going to take out this first Queen from the lair. Looks like Sakazaki is very prepared for this, and he's just going to go right into building another Queen. This Banshee is probably not going to be able to take out the Spire in time. The Spire has way too much health, so it looks like jpup is just going to settle for a little bit of economic harassment and try to kill a couple of drones with this. This Banshee up to 3 kills already. In the meantime, it looks like Sakazaki is moving out with a whole bunch of Zerglings. He's going to go tickle jpup's front because he knows that jpup just rushed straight for a Banshee, so he's going to try to punish him for that as much as he can. And it looks like jpup's wall is very solid. jpup is actually walling with a factory right here and another barracks right here, so he's going to be completely immune to any sort of a baneling bust unless there's a metric crap ton of banelings. And it looks like Sakazaki actually has none right now. Sakazaki's just going to get driven off by these Marines and Marauders, and he's just going to go in the corner, and we're probably going to see some baneling production momentarily. And it looks like jpup has another Banshee up, taking out the second Queen for Sakazaki. His first Banshee probably died when I was watching the Zerglings. And Sakazaki does have mutas up. These mutas are going to be able to make short work of this Banshee as soon as they catch up, because Banshees cannot attack air, and mutas can, because mutas are baller, and they spit little glavy things, which are awesome. And I really hope jpup has a couple of turrets up. It does not look like jpup has any turrets up. He's going to have to... jpup is building some turrets, but it looks like these mutas are just going to be able to snipe off all of these SCVs right as they're still being built. And jpup just has a couple of Marines to try to fend off these mutas. This missile turret is not done, actually. It looks like it's done, and it's just going to go down even with the SCV repairing it. These mutas are going to be able to make short work with these Marines. It's far too many mutas for this small number of Marines to deal with. jpup does have a Viking up, but the single Viking is going to go down to these mutas if the mutas have the presence of mind to take it out, and they do right here. It looks like Sakazaki... I take that back. This Viking is actually going to get 2 kills off. Very impressive. Looks like the missile turret was able to put a whole lot of damage on these mutas before it went down, and the second missile turret is not going to be able to cover, but a third behind the mineral line is going to be able to make short work of these 3 remaining mutas, especially with an SCV repairing it. So this little bit of mutas harass is going to get driven off without doing too much damage. He does force jpup to build several turrets, which does put jpup at a large economic disadvantage. And it does look like Sakazaki is actually not producing these Zerglings. He's not morphing them into banelings. Kind of curious why he's not going to try to punish the lack of a ground army that he knows that jpup has. He is adding on he is adding on a Hydralisk den behind his natural right there, so it looks like he's getting ready to transition into more of a ground-based conventional army. In the meantime, it looks like jpup's actually adding on another starport and pumping Vikings out of his first full-time just to deal with any additional mutas that may come out. Those mutas from Sakazaki are going to completely shut down any sort of dropship play that jpup would be attempting without large amounts of Viking support. It does look like jpup is going to have the Viking support, so he will be able to transition into that at a later time if he feels like. It looks like these Vikings are just going to hunt for overlords though right now, because Sakazaki does not have any Mutalisks. All those Mutalisks got mutilated by those turrets. Turrets are just so strong right now. And it does look like jpup is actually adding on another command center. He's getting ready to expand. I'm not really sure where he's going to expand to. There are a number of potentially safe locations. Looks like these Vikings are getting into a little bit of a skirmish with that Queen, but they're going to be able to avoid it and snipe another Overlord. If we look right now, we can see that Sakazaki's well into the red. He is 1 Overlord behind being even, and then another Overlord behind being able to produce any meaningful amount of combat units. jpup, in the meantime, has been massing a very small Marine Marauder force. He's got 3 Marines, 3 Marauders, 7 Hydralisks, 17 Zerglings. So he's not exactly in the best situation, but he is able to put out a whole bunch of harass with these Vikings. Got 2 kills on one of them and 1 kill on each of the others, so they've gotten a grand total of 4 Overlord kills between them. I believe the 2 kill one was actually